Good.
I really want to know. Is there another handout?
Yeah, I'm going to give them out. Okay, I was hoping to get that television working, but I guess we couldn't find the remote. So I'm going to tell you.
What's with all this high tech? I thought you were just a channel.
I'm looking for.
Well, direct channel upstairs.
Here's a handout.
Okay.
Are we online? Are we on YouTube or something? You're broadcasting my image? You gotta sign the release.
You're not in there. If you are, it wasn't meant to be that way. Just try to get this thing going. Give me a sec.
No, I couldn't find any more. They're upstairs, I think. Upstairs.
Okay,
Okay,
we're ready to roll.
action.
And take you off of the camera. Okay.
Good.
So
I charge.
the second prayer that we say when we wake up in the morning. So we began with the prayer book, and I want to just recap something that I'll continue to recap, because when you consider the different practices as a Jew, there are certain ones that I didn't get in that yet. There, pass it around. Hold on one second. I gotta make sure. Here we go. That was mine. No, what's it? What happened to mine? Was that mine? I have mine with my notes. No, I have mine with my notes. It looks different. No, I have a whole bunch of one of them, and then I have one of one. Okay.
And you know what, we need a pen too.
Somewhere has my notes. Let me see that one.
What?
Someone has my notes.
Maybe this is it. Maybe I took yours.
Let me see.
I took one.
Let me have it back here. Oh, is there a second set there? Now, let me just see that for one moment.
Again, no.
Oh, here, never mind. I got it. I have it. I have my notes.
CD in there. Give me
Okay,
one.
here we go. Pass it all
You
around.
got this note.
There you go.
Cheap
Okay.
set.
Can you have a pen?
Pen. Okay. All right. Here we go. We're ready to roll. So there are certain. I want to tell you a story that this story could be applied in so many different areas, but I'm gonna apply it to the Jewish life. So they say a story about a professor at the last day. You may have heard this one. It's a famous one. The last day of his teaching, he brought a jar. You ever heard this one with the jar? So he brings this large glass jar to his class, and he fills it. He has a bunch of rocks next to him, and he fills them with big rocks. And he asks the class, "Is it full?" And they said, "Yeah." He said, "No." He pulls out another bag with smaller rocks, and he pours it in, and it finds its way around the other ones. He says, "Is it full?" Now it's full. He says, "No." And then finally he fills up with sand to the top. He says, "Is it full?" He says, "Now it's full." One of the students got up and brought up a can of beer and poured it in and showed there's always room for a can of beer. But his point that he was demonstrating, he said, the glass jar is a metaphor to your life. And everything inside there is what you fill it up with. It says the big rocks represent your most important priorities. And first you fill up your life with your most important priorities. If you have more space, then you put the other ones in they're important to you, but they're not as important. And then you'll have more space, then you put things that are made more luxurious, So I think the same metaphor could also apply to, to the Jewish life, Meaning there are certain things that are, everything, of course, all the mitzvot are fundamental, but there are certain of the mitzvot that if you really take them on properly, then it'll impact all of the mitzvot. So unlike an individual mitzvah, whatever it may be, whether it be the mitzvah of tefillin, matzah, mezuzah, each one has, of course, implications that also they reach beyond just the putting up the mezuzah itself. But then you have the mitzvah of prayer, which would be one of those mitzvot that when you get prayer right, and you never really get it right, I'll have to tell you the little dirty secret. never really get it right. I mean, you get it right, but it's always a learning process. It's always something that you always work on yourself because it does require real work, as we're going to talk about. But either way, when you make it part of your journey that you're constantly praying, then it's naturally more likely that it's going to flow into the other activities of your day, and it won't be like, okay, I checked that off, I did my prayer, but it'll be something that lights up your day. So what we talked about already is an idea that you can connect with prayer is similar to like a flame. And the idea of prayer is that you're putting yourself, who's you, we'll talk about that soon, but you're putting yourself into this space and you're offering you're being present in a way where it's igniting your neshama. It's igniting your soul with the words, with the intentions, with all the details of what comes along with it. So what we're doing is we're going through. We started from the beginning of the process of prayer in your prayer book. Could you pass it? I'll tell you what page it's on. It begins on page number 5. You want to read that paragraph that says "My God" on the bottom. Just read the whole paragraph.
My God, the soul which you have given within me is pure. You have created it, you have formed it, you have breathed into it me, and you preserve it within me. You will eventually take it from me and restore it within me in the time to come. So long as the soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Lord my God, and God of my fathers, Master of all works, Lord of all souls. Blessed are you, Lord, who restores souls to dead bodies.
Okay, that's the actual blessing. So tonight we're going to discuss this a little bit more in depth, what the meaning of it is, what's the best way or good way to be present to it, and just things to think about to like what the process of it is, because it's easy to, in the practices of anything, including in the practices of Judaism, it's easy for us to get lost in the ritual itself, and it can even be divorced from really the intention of what's meant to be. In other words, it's a person could get acclimated to say these prayers every morning. You can learn them by heart, and say them while you're thinking about where your keys are. You know what I'm saying? So that's possible. But the idea that we're talking about, which is fundamental, in the building of our relationship with Hashem, this is all fundamental. So let's just reframe this for a moment. You just got up a few moments ago. That's what we're holding in the prayer book. You said the Moda Ani when you woke up. You washed your hands. You took care of whatever you need to do, and now you're take a few minutes before you get on to say a few prayers.
I guess last week you talked about washing your hands and
Correct.
really realizing, saying, we think we're going to do something really good today.
Correct.
And it changed the way that I wash my hands.
That's awesome.
It changed it. And did you get a cup?
Actually, I have a cup, but I like to work under the cup.
You need a cup. I'll get you a
I
cup.
have a cup. I have. I don't use it.
I'll give you a cup.
I don't know.
So let's come back over here. So basically, here's just a couple thoughts to at least to be more present to the importance of what it is you're doing. Okay. So one of the things that Hasidism does is it kind of zeroes you in on certain details that I can guarantee you they're not things that you would otherwise necessarily think about. I mean, they're part of your life, but not something you think about. Let's talk about breath for a moment. So think about what breath is. It's like an unbelievable miracle taking place. If you've ever been in a place where it's all smoky, you can hardly breathe, you suddenly get to appreciate what it is. Or if you really want to get present to the incredible gift of breath, I really suggest this anyway. It's a healthy exercise, but you could go up online and they have different breath work, and it'll make you hold in your breath for a certain amount of time. Let me tell you, when you get to that space where you can't hold it anymore, You start to realize, how grateful you are to have, to have the idea of breath. That also was, but let's also just zoom in on that for a moment, because we're talking about, the awakening in the morning. So what's exactly going on? So basically, we're exhaling a a type of gas, if you will, that can no longer sustain us.
You know what?
Can no longer sustain us. So it can be seen as its use was taken care of. If somebody else tried to, if you blew into a balloon and try to get it to the next guy to use for oxygen, it's not going to work, because it depletes the oxygen once a person breathes. So when we expose of it, it gets rid of it. It takes the advantage. So Hashem is inserting in that experience the profound moment of life that's coming in at that moment. Every second that you're breathing, you're breathing in a new gift of life. It's a very big deal. Now, when you talk, you're using your breath. So you're using that gift of life that was just given to you just now. And how are you using it? How's it showing up? In general, by the way, what's that? It's too cold. Where is it? It's white and somewhere on top over there. Do you see it? It has to be on top. I put it on. Maybe. Oh, it's on the wall. On the wall. On the wall. On the wall. So, so when you consider when you're using your vocal cords, you're actually using that gift that was just given to you. And also, we're not going into this particular area of things, but it's important, because it's part of prayer, is that your words carry energy. And it's not some idea, it's just a reality. When you just think about how much joy you could bring to somebody with your words, and vice versa, just like that. You know what I'm saying? So the point is that when you wake up in the morning and you haven't used those faculties, and you've been in a coma state where the entire being has been in a state of rest. So what are we doing? We're engaging our bodies at the very beginning of and the onset of our day to acknowledge what just took place. So not just to just get up and okay, let's get the day going, get the coffee, Folgers in your cup, but it's really about engaging that part of us, which happens through a process that requires us to make the effort. Because if you don't,
So it's a practice.
if you don't, what's that? It's a.
I said it.
What's that?
Practice.
It's a daily practice. It's a continuous practice.
It's a conscious effort.
It's a conscious effort.
Especially with me.
So now, so what happens? Hey, Michael, you got a chair there?
Just for Sunday.
Oh, sure. You want to put in the refrigerator underneath? You know where that is?
Yeah.
Right underneath. There you go. Any questions? No question. Good. Okay. So now that
I have one.
Yeah.
How do you overcome the noise that you wake up with that wants to shut down the practice?
That's a great question. So I want to tell you something. First of all, just so you know,
Sometimes it's very loud.
just so you know, those. Hey. Okay. Just so you know, those are a very interesting fellow here. If you text me after the class, I'll text you the link to his YouTube, where he talks about Jewish meditation, and he gives you a form of meditation, and you could use meditation to help you with that. But another thing is, the formula in saying prayers is that the moment you realize that your mind went somewhere else, you just bring yourself back to it. You don't.
Mine goes somewhere else as soon as I wake up.
I understand, but I want to tell you a nice thing about a habit. It takes 2 weeks for you to form a new habit. Did you know that? So when you do something every day for 2 weeks, then your body gets used to doing it. It's not a struggle anymore. So when you're used to doing something else. So anyway, so the point is that the prayer this prayer that we say after you wash your hands, after you got dressed and everything else, this is the first prayer that we just said. And I want to tell you something about this particular prayer that's pretty amazing. Two things. This prayer, if you go online and you type in the Hebrew, 2 words, the Hebrew, Elokai Neshama, I was hoping to play it for you, but it didn't turn out to be that way. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable video that will show up from one of the victims of October 7th. And on his way to the festival for a long time. Now, mind you, this guy was not a religious Jew. It was a Jewish holiday that day. He was going to a festival. But it's so unbelievable because without him, of course, realizing what's going to happen to a few hours later. But he's singing this song with these words, Elokai Neshama Shemazatabi. Elokai is spelled Elokai. Elokai. So Elokai Neshama Shemazatabi, he's singing it for, and it obviously after October 7th, it went viral because that was the last broadcast that he did. He did a live broadcast while he was driving to the festival. To me, what's so interesting is that a few months ago, I was reading a teaching from the 6th Chabad Rebbe, and he, out of nowhere, let's see if I can find it quickly, but out of nowhere, I'm sure I can't, but out of nowhere, he says, when a Jew says this prayer with a profound heart, regardless of how religious he is or he isn't, and he just goes on to say some pretty amazing words. And it was so amazing to me because it was almost like a sudden prophecy in the middle of this. You know what I'm saying? It was so strange how that worked out. So it's to me at this time because of that his that story it kind of has a little bit more meaning to me. You know what I mean? Than even in the past. So on that note, what's that?
Could you text us the link or tell us before we could find
Come
it?
again?
Could you text us the link or tell us?
Yeah. If you send me a text after class or now, after class I'm going to go to my office. I will do it right away. Okay. Okay. So now, I can't find that for right now, that teaching from the previous rabbi, but it was very profound. So let's talk about the meaning and the deeper meaning of those words that we just read. So I made this paper for you. I made it also, I'm going to explain it, but I made it also so you can actually look it over to kind of circle back to it if you want to get back to the meaning of it, okay? So the first word that you said here in Hebrew is when we said a couple things. You said, "Oh my God, the soul that you gave me is pure. You created it, you formed it, and you blew it inside me." So there's a description that we're talking about that if you don't do what we're doing right now, we're about to do, you'll just read right through it. I'm going to tell you, if you look at the Teshuvah, the Vidui, in the and Michael, I know that you're a davener, but I'm not going to test you on this one, okay? But when we say Hashamnu, so there's different. We say I have sinned, I have transgressed. He has different words for sin. If you just read it in Hebrew or in English, you could just think like you're saying it in 3 different ways. I was hurtful, I wasn't nice, I was being not a good person. You know what I'm saying? You're saying the same thing. But we don't do that in prayer. And each one means something different. One of them means you're apologizing for things that you did by mistake without knowing, or for things that you thought were right that you did it. You know what I'm saying? So each one has a distinction. Or the ones that you knew what you were doing was wrong, but you did it anyway. They're different. They're different types of sins. They're actually different types of sins, like the Hebrew word for it. So the fact that the prayer incorporates 4 different unique words in the description of the neshama, of the soul that comes to us, is indicative. Of course, it's telling us there's something it's telling us. That's indicative. It's actually expressing. What is it expressing? So the first level is called tahore. We say we're talking about our soul. So now if you want to just think about this for a moment, like as if it's a meditation, what you're meant to be thinking about is a process of what just took place. You just woke up. A part of you was not present until the time that you just woke up. So something just took place. Something from a transcendent reality is now manifest within you in a way that it was different just a little while ago when you were sleeping. So you're now making note of that. But you're not just making note of that, you're describing the journey of the neshama. The first thing we say, it's pure. We're describing the very essence of the neshama. So I want to tell you what that means. I want to just tell you, the Kabbalah tells us that there are certain relationships that you can't sever it. That one of them is a relationship between a parent and a child.
One of it what?
Is a relationship between a parent and a child. There are plenty of people, I'm sure we all know, that they don't talk to their parents. But there's a part of them, as much as they say that they don't talk to them anymore, it's just not severable. And where you see something, naturally, a person, you can have a parent that's so upset at their child, they're not taking their calls anymore, etc. And then, God forbid, they find out they just got hit by a car. They'll be the first one in the hospital. So what just took place? What happened? They weren't on talking terms. In fact, horrible words went back and forth. So what just happened? Why is she in the hospital? And that's because there is a point in that relationship that doesn't have to have any reason to it. Because it's bigger than that. It's higher than that. It never gets disturbed by that. Now, mind you, we're living in dark times. What I mean by that, I mean spiritually dark times, where, from one hand, of course, there's a tremendous expression of thirst and connection and desire to connect and all that. But also, you have, the Talmud tells us that in the last moments before Mashiach comes, which we believe we're in those moments, there'll be a tremendous amount of chutzpah. You know what chutzpah is? You ever heard the word chutzpah? Do you have an example of chutzpah? Alan Dershowitz, in his book years ago, I read it, has an example. He says, imagine taking a dump in front of someone's door and knocking on the door to ask them for toilet paper. That's chutzpah.
I don't know if this is a good example for this, but there's something called the Metropolitan Museum of Art Gala every year. It's like a fashion event. It's the big thing. Every celebrity in the world goes there. And this year, Kanye's wife showed up naked, wearing a little plastic.
That's sick.
That's
That's sick.
Okay.
It's still chutzpah also. It is chutzpah. It is chutzpah.
I mean, it's a fashion event. You show up there.
Yeah. But you know what? It's actually exactly, the Talmud tells us that before Mashiach comes, the spiritual darkness will be so palpable that you'll have things like that going on.
We've always gone on.
No, not to the degree that you have today.
No, they're just more you're just exposed to them.
That's correct. That makes it more prevalent, because now it's on people's phones. You have kids on phones that are saying. You have kids on phones that are spreading messages about their parents and other people that are horrible. That's actually. But the point. Good. But getting back to our point over here, is that nevertheless at the center of who we are, and our neshama, there's a point where you're acknowledging in the word when you say Elokai neshama shenatatabi tahorahi, the first words of those prayer, what you're acknowledging is the highest point of your soul. So in over here, if you look at the number one, your soul is pure energy, an extension of infinite divine intelligence. I mean, even the intelligence part is improper, but your soul is pure. So you're acknowledging that truth within you. I use the example of the parent and child because just like there's that point in that parent and child, there's a point within you that could be triggered, and within a split second, one could be transformed from doing something that's one way, doing to the 100% the opposite way. I share with you in the past that when I drive my kids to school, we listen to stories of great tzaddikim, holy people. And we were listening to one recently from the first Chabad Rebbe, which in the time, unfortunately, it was very common for Jews to be thrown into prison because they couldn't pay their rent to the landowner. But it was very unreasonable. They would do horrible things to them. So that they should force the Jewish community to raise money to get these people out. But it was very hard. They weren't making much money to begin with, There was one fellow who was a wealthy man, lived in this city, and the Alter Rebbe said, "Let's go to him." And his colleague said, "What are you going to go to him for?" Everybody knows he's a miser. You know what a miser is? He's a miser. So I'm going to tell a Persian joke, but I hope you guys won't take it personal. Okay. Just a lot of Persians, not talking about you, Chas v'shalom, but a lot of the Persians have a reputation, when it comes to
Indian.
when it comes to money. They say a story about a guy who came to a Persian fellow to ask him for tzedakah. So the Persian, this very, very wealthy Persian, so he says, every year, he says, my sister, her husband passed away. She works all the time, even though she has young kids. Every year, she asks me for $20,000. He says, every year, my mother, she can't pay her medical bills. She has to get inferior medical help. Every year, she asks me for $25,000. He says, every year, my own brother, he does this type of business, and sometimes he needs money. Every year, he asks me for $25,000. I don't give them. Why should I give you?
Yeah.
It's funny.
This guy go to
Am I wrong? I'm not wrong. It's a reputation, huh? I'm saying it's a reputation.
This guy go into a store, at the video store,
Yeah.
looking for the movie, The Generous Iranian.
Say what?
The Generous Iranian.
Yeah.
They're going to look at the science fiction.
Okay, anyway, so going back to the story of the Alter Rebbe. Sorry for the distraction there. And also, we have our hearts with the Persian Jews.
Yeah, we love
It's
them
nothing
all.
personal, God forbid.
We love them
So either way, so what happens is that the Alter Rebbe, he goes to this guy's house and he pours out his heart to him about the situation with the guy in jail. And he needed, like 4,000 rubles. And he didn't even have 1,000. He needed 3,000 rubles. So the guy comes out and gives him a 5 ruble coin. And the Alter Rebbe started to thank him and profusely give him blessings and tell him what kind of great man he is, etc. And he took the boy, started to walk away. And as they began to walk away, the guy called him back. He said, I want to give you another 5. And this happened again and again. Every time he gave 5, the guy needed 3,000, and he's giving him 5. I'm saying that's not a big achievement. And he's giving him blessings as if he just gave him the whole thing. But that's exactly what happened. Over a period of time, he ends up giving the whole thing. And when his colleagues, they talked to them, they asked him, what was that about? So he told them, he said, as an neshama, he wanted to do the right thing. But his Yetzer Hara, his inclination, his negative inclination, has been doing a good job at stopping him. But just by engaging in a little bit, making a little dent, it, like the Mishnah says, you do one mitzvah, it brings another mitzvah. So because that exists already, just by the fact that he took an activity, an action, that he did a mitzvah, so that itself drew the light. And that light brought the attraction to do more, etc., etc.
So it's a weak stuff.
What's that? No, he gave it right away.
No.
My point, the point in our conversation is the awareness of this part of your soul has to be a constant reminder that regardless of where, the reality of life is this. The way your heart pumps, that's the journey of life. It's not just your heart. Everything's a rhythm. But there are certain anchors that when you hold strong to them, you're always reminded that you have that inside you already. And sometimes the way you ignite it is by doing something that's going to ignite it, even. Anyway, I'm just going through the other one. When God places your soul in your body, the essence remains unchanged. This is very, very important. That means that even though when you and I are experiencing intelligence, when you're talking, when you're listening, when you're seeing, it's all soul activity. But that's not the essence of your soul. Hasidus refers to that as like an aura of your soul. The essence of your soul is so much more profound than the experience that we're capable of having in a day-to-day life of a human body. It's just not possible. But it's there. That's the point. If you want to learn more about that, we're going to go through some of it now. But there's a general concept in Kabbalah. Everyone should know about this. It's called Hishtalshelus. Hishtalshelus literally means a chain. And the idea is that from the origin of the creation to the level of how we're experiencing it, there is a series of events that take place in real time that make it so. So there's 4 worlds. We're going to get to that in a moment. And those 4 worlds are 4 dimensions, they're filters. So right now, as you and I are interacting in this physical world, if you were plugged into the higher worlds, you would be experiencing it differently. You'd still be physical, but you wouldn't be experiencing it the way we experience it. We're experiencing it through filter. Now, let me give you an example of what that means. I think it's a good example. Then I want to go back to the actual. But let me give you an example of what that means. It's a wonderful idea in Hasidism. When you learn the teachings of Hasidus, it's something called Ha'ara. Ha'ara means an aura. Then you have an aura of an aura. Then you have an aura of an aura of an aura, etc. And I'll give you an example, a real life example. I remember one time I was learning this teaching this idea very more intensely. And at the time I was going across to the water early in the morning before it got light. So the moon often was out, like really bright. And I remember one time as I was walking down the staircase by the pier, and the waters were nice, nice and there were big waves. So I was like, I had to wait for a few minutes till the set was there. So what do? You observe your surroundings. And I saw a piece of glass. And it was an amazing just watching the glass. It was as if I was watching a television screen because it was reflecting the water. But it wasn't just reflecting the water. It was actually reflecting the sun also. I mean, the moon also. So here's what it means. The light on the moon is Ha'ara, first generation light. The moonlight shining on the ocean, second generation light, Ha'ara da Ha'ara. The reflection from the ocean to the glass, Ha'ara da Ha'ara da Ha'ara da Ha'ara, fourth generation. Now just imagine. Imagine if you were to you never saw the sun before. You never saw the moon before. And now you saw this wonderful visual on this glass with waves, with light, with reflection. Could you ever, in your own mind, come to the conclusion that this, at this very second, is actually being produced by the sun? How could you? It would be like such an impossibility. You never saw the sun before. You only saw what you just saw. So, because it's 4 generations removed, it gets so distorted. It's not distorted because in real time the sun is shining on that glass. I mean, you wouldn't describe it that way because it's going to the moon and to the water and to the glass. But in real time, that's what's happening. But if you were only to experience the 4th generation, it would be a high calling to therefore work your way back to what's really going on, that there's a sun and there's a moon, etc. So because we're in that 4th level, so our experience is very similar. So whatever we experience and we observe and we think that we are seeing whatever we're seeing, let's just remember we're living in 4th generation of that light, of that sense of unnationality. You got that?
Oh, I got it plenty.
Okay, good. So you're not a human being trying to become spiritual. You're a spiritual being navigating a human experience. That's what really our reality is. And that's the Tahora level. We're still at the highest level. By the way, in the names of the neshama, that's also the yechida level. I want to tell you something about the yechida level, which literally means one, or at one.
Is
One.
this the 4 level? Are you going to be telling us now the 4 levels
of the soul? But each one, we're going through that. So this is related. This tahora, pure, is the highest. Is the 5th level.
What's it called?
Tahora. Tahora means pure. Okay. So now.
That's when you know it's the sun.
That's what exactly. You're acknowledging.
Can that be a traumatic revelation?
What's that?
That can be a traumatic revelation.
The truth is, if a person were to really see who they were, it would be very, very traumatic.
I know. That's why I said it.
That's the truth.
Because I've had a experience.
People would walk by. If you go onto YouTube or go onto the Chabad.org website and watch videos of people at the Rebbe, you'll hear people telling stories how in the moment they would look at the Rebbe, like that moment would happen in a split second. When you read teachings and spiritual teachings, it happens with tzaddikim because who they are. So what's flowing through them is the sense.
Can I just share one caveat? Real quick. I was was watching the sunset between the Grand Teton Mountains.
Okay.
I thought the sun was setting, and it dawned on me the sun wasn't setting. The earth was doing a backflip, and I could literally feel the earth. It was so unbelievably like. Was it ayahuasca?
Never mind.
The point is that the horror was revealed to me.
I got you.
And it was traumatic. It was.
Let's sort. I like that. Let's go back. Number 2, awakening to who you really are. When you say the soul you have given me is pure, you're not just reciting a phrase. You're activating a deeper awareness. So that's also within the power of speech. You understand?
Where are you?
So number 2. So the point of, if you learn Kabbalah, you'll also realize it's something that, in the meditation, I realize that they do this, but this comes in Kabbalah. So there's something that occurs in your speech where you hear people, you go online, you hear these motivators, they say, tell yourself, like, I can do it. Well, it's actually pretty Kabbalistic. Because there's a message that occurs that only occurs as a result of it being spoken. Do you get that? By the way, this is a good reason, even from a scientific reason, and not that should be the motive, because spiritual is really turned on over here. But why one should never use words negative, even about I'm not good at that. I can't do that. I'm horrible at that. Stuff like that, or I don't know, anything negative people tell themselves. Anyway, your soul isn't broken; it may simply forgotten how to shine. And that's, of course, not your soul that's forgotten, but really that's, in a certain sense, that's the experience we're in. That the moment you come out of the womb, you forget who you really are. It's part of the process. It's part of the game. Every breath, every moment of stillness is a chance to realign with your true self. Okay, that's just a little about it. Let's go to the next one. Here are the different levels of your soul. Okay. So the first one are the four worlds, right there. So the first one is the 4 worlds. Okay, your soul, in order for the soul to come to your body, it has to descend. But I want to tell you something. This is a very hard idea to really. As a yeshiva boy, I had a hard time understanding this. At a certain age, from the way it was being explained, I couldn't understand what they were saying when it talked about 4 worlds. I remember when I was like 16 or 17, I think I was 16, I sat down next to one of the older yeshiva boys, who everybody talked about him as being the one that really gets it. And I said, okay, I took out a paper, I said, I'm here, tell me where the world of Atzilus is. Map it out for me. Where the world of Atzilus is, the highest world. Where is it, And I just remember that whatever he said made no sense to me. That's all I remember. I felt bad for him. No, because he obviously, I'm going to just say, this guy obviously didn't have his mind around it. But there was another yeshiva boy I reached out to. And I remember he explained it to me. It was an amazing concept. It took me a while to get it. Like, for example, he was saying, I remember one of the ideas, he was saying, 10 is more than 1, right? But if you don't have 10 objects that you're counting, is 10 still more than 1? Of course it is. 10 is still more than 1, even though it's not in a physical manifestation. 10 is more than 1. I remember it was this idea of space and ideas that could exist in a dimension other than ours. But here's this. I hope this is a simple way to look at it, but maybe it isn't. Okay. But the Arizal uses the following metaphor. It says when you see the truth at the Atzilus level, it's like looking through clear glass. At the Bria level, it's like looking through a glass with a little bit of a fog. And as it goes to the lower levels, the Atzia level, then it's completely distorted. You get what I'm saying? So in other words, your neshama, right now, your soul, if you were tapped into the Atzilus level, the world of oneness, then you would be present the way Moses was. That's how Moses was present. So Moses saw a spiritual reality in front of him as it unfolds in physicality. So this is not somewhere, it's right here. But we are not in that space. We're not in that dimension. So last week in the Torah, when the people came to complain for meat, and Moses said, "Where do I got meat from?" The Kabbalah says Moses saying, "I'm an Atzilus guy." You know what I'm saying? We're vegetarians in Atzilus. Well, not really. He wasn't saying vegetarians.
When the book that we were counting the Omer with,
Yes.
every day's Omer, they give us an explanation for Atzilot, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya.
Yes.
And they said, I think what they said was one was the physical world, the second one was the intellectual world, the third one was the emotional world, and the fourth one was the spiritual world. And I don't know.
Let me give you an example that I think made it easier for me. Okay. So Nancy Trent. Okay. So Nancy, when you say the word I, okay, and I think I may have shared this idea with you. Maybe I did. Okay? So if I ask you, how are you doing? So now, if you think about that question, it's not necessarily an easy question. Sometimes it is. But let's just say a person has, at one moment, just heard the best news of their life. And at the exact same second, someone took a hammer and hit their toe with it. But they heard the best news of their life. Could you imagine that happening to you? Now I'm asking you, Mark. Imagine that just happened to you, but you heard the best news of your life, okay? How are you doing?
Good.
But you just got hit with a hammer on your toe.
That's right.
How could you be doing good?
Because it overshadows the pain.
So there you go. So there's a part of you that's a higher part of you that even though the lower part of you, there's a part of you that is in pain, but because of the significant force in that moment that's at that higher next level of you, at the emotional level of you, it overwhelms your being to the degree where you can actually feel zero pain. It's not just feeling like you're happy, therefore it doesn't bother you as much. You can actually feel zero pain. And you see this in both ways. You see it like when I was 11 years old, the Chabad house, 10, 11 years old, the Chabad house in Westwood burnt down. And 3 people passed away. And one of the guys that saved his life, he went through like whatever he went through. He didn't feel anything. He jumped out of a window. He was a 300-pound guy. He jumped out of a window that was like 25, 30 feet up there, a window that he couldn't physically possibly have fit through. He couldn't physically have possibly fit through. Now the fact is that you when you have adrenaline, your body is able to make it through spaces that otherwise you couldn't. But think about that. Think about that. That means there's something going on inside you that when it gets triggered and it's up, then it actually cancels. It can even cancel the next level. By the way, I was by
both ways, no?
What's that?
That can work both ways.
That's true.
Again, when
That's
you
true.
experience anger.
No, absolutely, that's true. But I'm just saying. But I'm just giving an example of another level of you.
That's
There's a level of so that level of you would be the ruach level of you. Now I'm simplifying it because it's really much more deeper than that. But I'll just give you an example of the distinction between the asiya level of you would be your toenail, and the ruach level of you would be your spirit. You get it? And then the neshama level of you. So just so you know that those are the Hasidim. When you study Hasidism, when a person studies Hasidism in real with the proper attention and focus, etc., it could put a person into a trance state in their prayers. Now there's a story with there's many stories with but the first Chabad Rebbe, they had to put cushions around his room on the lower half of the room. You know why? Because he was so involved in his prayer that he would forget. He wouldn't be standing. He would start rolling around. He would bang his head. Now it sounds insane, right? He was a soul of Atzilus. He was a soul of Atzilus. So his experience, even in the physical body, was very transcendent. I met a dentist. I have nothing against dentists, but I hate going to them. I told my dentist the other day how much I have a conflict every time I come to see him because I like him. But I went to a dentist who told me that he had a patient, and I heard this actually. Let me tell you the one about the fourth Chabad Rebbe, but I heard a similar one from a dentist. The fourth Chabad Rebbe was unhealthy, and he had to have an operation, but he could not take the anesthesia because it would have been a problem. So he told him, I'm going to start to sing a nigun. After I'm singing it for like 10 minutes, do whatever you have to do. You got nothing to worry about. And that's exactly what they did. They did an operation on him, no anesthesia, and he was singing a nigun. Now, I heard that as a kid, and they're tzaddikim, they're holy people, but it's how does a person do that, Then I met the dentist. The dentist told me that he has a patient who actually does meditation. And he told him, he said, I'm going to do meditations in 10 minutes. You could do the root canal on me, and don't worry about it. And that's what he said. I couldn't believe this. I'm doing a root canal on a guy. He says, I can't imagine humanly possible. But what that means is that there's a way to be present at a higher way than we're usually present.
I once had the dentist when I was a kid do a filling without anesthesia because I was sick of getting the anesthesia.
And
I went through it.
nice. Well, congratulations. Okay, so now those are the levels. Just with just in short, I mean, it's a more but in short, if you were to experience your soul as it exists in its purest, rawest state, you would not be who you are. You get that? You would not be who you are. Like you would be you would see everything in your life. You would just completely see differently. The way you look at the physical world, the way we look at it, comes with the ingredients of limitation, of tzimtzum, another important word, contraction. Because of the divine light, the contraction of the divine light, the experience that we're having is a very limited one. But the point that we're articulating in this prayer is that despite the fact that the neshama comes and embodies this low-level creature, the physical body, it still maintains the entirety of it. It goes through a process so that it could be present in the body and in the way that it is. And we're acknowledging that in the words. You get that?
I don't want to say I do because I don't 100%, but I really do want to understand this. Is group each realm belongs to the level of your soul? Are those within the four that are on top?
Yes, those are your soul. The one on top are the worlds. So they would go side by side.
So each one of these four.
So actually, the lower, the one on, I'm sorry, yes, correct. I'm sorry. Yes, each one of these four are the way that your soul, at the level of your soul present, at a different level. So I'm going to give you an example. So the world of Asiya, the Asiya world, right? World of action, physical world. The part of your soul that's present in the Asiya level is the basic function of life. Your five senses, you're breathing, you're physically alive. Something's happening. Your soul is interacting with your body, and now you're alive. That's a nephesh experience. The next level, the emotional, is a more sublime experience. It's not as related to the physicality as much as the nefesh level. The nefesh level is, is in your blood. Your blood is in your nefesh. This is already the emotional self.
And so
So it's going up. So the lowest level is nefesh. It didn't. I'm sorry that it was a mistake the way that it did it. Yechida is the highest level. Yechida is the highest level. Yeah, Yechida is a level. That's a part of you that's inseparable. This is the part when you hear stories in Jewish history. One of the things that you find that's absolutely unique to the Jewish people, doesn't happen amongst other faiths, is that you have Jews who are totally secular, totally non-observant historically. This happened many, many times. But when they were given a choice to either to bow down to an idol or give up their religion, their faith in the Jewish in the Jewish God, if you will, or give up their lives, they gave up their lives. Now, why would they give up their lives? They weren't religious people. What would drive them to give up their lives? So the Alter Rebbe says that's what it is. It's not yechida. It's not. I cannot. You know what I'm saying? It's not that. So it's not an informed part of self. It's a transcendent part of self. But it's still part of who you are. It's just dormant most of the time. It's not something. The part that you're always present to is your nefesh level. Your nefesh level is what you're always present to. You know what I'm saying? So if someone, is going to give you a hit, you're going to react right away. That's your nefesh level. Physical. So you have physical, emotional. Ruach is emotional. Neshama is intellectual. Chaya is subconscious. And Yechida is supraconscious. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize it got messed up in the order.
I saw it, but I didn't.
You should have said something.
When I'd be misbehaving, my mother would always say, "You're taking my neshama out," and she nodded, she just.
Yeah, that was an expression. Because usually, often you hear people call the neshama in general as okay. Next one, the words you say, you have breathed it into me. So this is a very, very also another interesting point. If you look at something that if you just read the Bible and you read it again and again and again, maybe you won't think about this. But if you look at the creation of every other creature, living creature, what's a huge difference between the way God created every other living creature and the human being? You
can speak.
No, but in the way that Hashem created, in the way God created, what's a big, huge difference between the way Hashem created all other living creatures and human beings? Did you go to Hebrew school?
Part of my childhood.
Get your money back.
הוא ברא אותם וזהו יצר אותם. That's the difference.
No, everything ברא.
את האדם הוא לא ברא, את האדם הוא יצר.
כן, אבל הוא גם כן ברא.
בסדר.
זכר ונקבה ברא אותם.
כן, אבל כעיקרון, את העולם הוא ברא ואת הבן אדם הוא יצר אותו בעצמו במו ידיו.
Okay, so that's a point. That's a good point. He's saying that when all other creatures, it talks about Hashem creating them, but in terms when it comes to man, it talks about Hashem forming them also. And the Talmud tells us that this is intended to let us know that the human species is like Hashem's private project. Now everything's Hashem's project, but the point is, if you think about the intention of creation, it makes sense that the human creature, the human species is that. But the point that I was trying to bring out was that the only creature that has every other creature, when God created them, He created their soul and their body together. The human being, Hashem created a body and then blew a soul into it. And that's what we're saying in this prayer. You blew it into me. Now, why is that important? says God didn't merely breathe life into you, he infused you with energy from his innermost essence. The Zohar says that just like when a person breathes out, you breathe out from the innermost who you are. So you breathe, so therefore the term is used in the Torah. Hashem breathed the soul to let us know that the soul that we have within us is a part of Hashem. You get that?
It's on fire.
So it's okay, let's go to the next one. This is gonna number 5. So we say you will take it from me. At the end of that prayer, we say you'll take it from me. This line reminds us that our soul's presence in the body is temporary, a phase in a greater journey.
Where are we at now?
Number 5. Number 5.
Page 3, number 5.
You're not your body. So yeah, this is also very. There's a mission. There's a mission that says a person should do teshuvah one day before you die. You know what that means, right?
Yeah, I do it every day.
You got to do it every day because you never know. What a brilliant teaching. Now you got to do it every day because you never know. So we're not, God forbid, we're not morbid people, but you're meant to really just think about the temporariness of life. When you remind yourself about that in the morning, when you're saying you're going to return it back to me, etc., that you get more present to the temporariness of life and the importance of every minute that we have.
And we're lucky in Malibu that we have to turn on to Pacific Coast Highway.
What's that?
And we're lucky that we live in Malibu. We have to turn on to Pacific Coast Highway. And hope for the best.
I think Steve Wright was a Jewish comedian. He said, I'm going to live forever. And he said, so far, so good.
Okay, so you're not your body, your awareness behind it, a piece of infinite intelligence. When you live with this awareness, your perspective shifts. Status, struggle, and surface concerns begin to fade. Our mission is to align our thoughts, speech, and action with the divine. That's where we find clarity and peace, not through belief alone, but through alignment. Okay, you will return it to me. Those are the last words of that prayer, towards the end of it. So it's interesting. A lot of Jews don't know this, that there's about resurrection. You know about the resurrection, right? So when Mashiach comes, all the people who passed away over history come back to life. Not all of them. All the righteous people of the world and all the righteous and the Jewish people, unless there are certain things that if a Jew did during his lifetime, he would not come back. But otherwise, everybody's coming back. So,
we have a certain
so every morning, when we make that statement, it's by this one of the 13 principal foundations of belief, according to Rambam, to believe that the dead are coming back. So when we talk about that, we also remind us. There's another way to remind us about that. It says sleep is many death. That is the Talmud. That's why we wash our hands in the morning. So the point is, again, all this is reminding us that when you're waking up in the morning, it's not just another great moment because you got up and you're on the right side of the grass. But also this reminds us about our mission. So again, we talk about the words are kind of morbid there. It says Hashem returns it to dead bodies. So it says what happens when you awake, your body reboots. But more than that, your soul returns, consciousness comes back online. The body without the soul is just a biological matter. What animates it is not seen, but deeply felt. These are the thoughts behind these ideas, right? So this applies to the world as well. The universe functions like a body, and it's the soul of the world. What gives life is godliness. It's not abstract. It is intelligent, living presence within all things. So that's it. That's the. This is the idea behind that prayer, and the intention here is to. If you don't have a siddur, I think everybody has a siddur, but go through the words again, and when you do it in the morning, try to be present in the way that we just talked about. Think about
the prayer. This one here.
My God, no, it started the page before.
Read?
Yeah, the one you read.
What page?
Started the page before.
What's that prayer?
Oh, it starts on 5, sorry.
Yeah, it starts in the bottom of 5. It says, "My God."
My morning prayer, including coffee.
You could do that. You could do that right before your coffee.
I can't. I need to be awake.
Yeah, but again, you think about it like this. So every morning you're given the gift of life, and you make whatever choices you want. Doing it this way activates a certain part of you early on in the day, and naturally, when you turn on those engines, then good things are going to follow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You took the time to be present and to acknowledge the great gift that Hashem's got going on.
You understand English better than me. There is no translation for bara in English.
Create.
No, create is Yitzirah. It's Yetzar et Adam.
Form. Yitzirah is forming.
You
Create is
create something.
create is yesh ma'ayin.
Okay,
Real
create yesh me'ayin maybe, but bara is a low creation. Bara
So the
is
English word that's used often is created from ex nihilo, something from nothing.
okay. I understand. I know that. I don't know English.
That's
the thing. I don't think the translation is right.
I'll just tell you.
Who am I?
If you text me and you ask me to send this to you, I'll send it to you also. There are great there are great nigunim, there are great tunes that help
Start
you
listening.
Good.
I start listening.
Good. There are great tunes that really can help you in prayer. I want to tell you, if you really want to get into the exercise of prayer, sometimes you got to listen to different. I'm talking about Hasidic. I'm talking about Hasidic chants, because there was intention behind it when they composed them. There was spiritual intention behind it, and but not just Hasidic, by the way. I find many Sephardic tunes also do this. I'm going to leave this with you. You should know it's a principle that your sound awakens your intention. So when you articulate something, especially in a song, it could ignite that same exact idea and make it a flame, which in a way, and otherwise, by the way, that's why I put together a lot of those tunes that we sing in shul. I should really make a recording so others could learn it. But I did it. I really did it at the beginning for my own journey, because I noticed how much easier it was to be present to the experience of the words that I was saying if it was in a song. You know what I'm saying? And that's because of this idea that it's part of how you're designed. That when you say something in a song, then it awakens a part of you that otherwise could be difficult to awaken. Yeah.
No.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Okay, guys.
Back next week.